I thought I was just signing paperwork after my mom died. Then my aunt said, just trust me, it's standard. But my name wasn't where it should have been, and there was a house I'd never heard of. Suddenly I realized. The truth wasn't that my mom left a mess. The truth was someone was counting on me not looking close enough. The morning my mom died, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful. Just empty in a way that didn't make sense yet. I remember standing in the kitchen staring at the sink like I forgot what I was supposed to do next. There was a mug still sitting there from the night before, hers, with a faint ring of tea at the bottom. I didn't move it. I didn't touch anything. People always say everything becomes a blur after something like that, but for me it wasn't a blur. It was sharp in the wrong places. I remember the sound of the fridge turning on. The clock ticking too loudly. The way the sunlight came through the blinds like nothing had changed. But everything had. I didn't cry right away. I didn't scream either. I just stood there, holding onto the edge of the counter, trying to understand how a house could feel so full one day and completely hollow the next. My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 32, and up until that week, my life had been small in a way that felt safe. I worked as a clerk at a supply company in Salem, Oregon. I came home at the same time every day. I cooked simple meals. I sat with my mom in the evenings while she watched whatever show she was into that week. It wasn't exciting, but it was steady. It was ours. My mom, Linda Thompson, had been sick for a while, but she never talked about it like it was serious. Even when it clearly was. I've got everything handled, she used to say. That was her phrase. Everything handled. Bills, appointments, paperwork, things I didn't even think to ask about. She kept it all organized in a way that made me trust her without question. And that's probably why what happened after she died hit me the way it did. Because I trusted that whatever she left behind was already taken care of. I didn't expect anyone else to step in and start making decisions. But my Aunt Susan did. She showed up the day after my mom passed, like she had already been waiting for the moment. Not in a cold way. Not obviously. She hugged me. She brought food. She moved around the house like she belonged there. She always had that presence. Susan Davis. My mom's older sister. Same sharp eyes, same way of speaking where everything sounded final even if it wasn't. She worked as an agent in Portland, and everything about her felt polished. Controlled. Like she had already thought 10 steps ahead while everyone else was still trying to process step 1. At first, I was relieved she was there. I didn't want to deal with phone calls or documents or anything that required thinking. I just wanted to sit in the quiet and not feel like I was drowning. So when she said, I'll help you handle things, I didn't question it. I said thank you. The first few days passed in pieces. There were calls I barely remember, people stopping by, food I didn't eat. My aunt handled most of it. She spoke to people on the phone, wrote things down, kept track of who needed what. I let her. I told myself it made sense. She had experience. She was organized. I wasn't. Then, a few days later, she called me. Can you come by the house tomorrow? She asked. Her house. In Portland. I've already spoken with a lawyer, she added. We just need to go over some paperwork so we can move things along. Move things along. That phrase again. Like everything needed to be pushed forward before it had time to settle. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just said okay. The next morning, I drove up to Portland. The whole drive felt longer than usual, like the road stretched out just to give me more time to think about nothing. Her house was exactly how I remembered it. Clean. Quiet. Everything in its place. When I walked in, she was already at the dining table. Papers were spread out in neat stacks. Perfectly aligned. Too perfect. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Good, you're here, she said. Let's get this done so you don't have to worry about it anymore. I sat down slowly, my eyes drifting to the papers. What is all this? I asked. Just standard estate paperwork, she said quickly. I already spoke with Daniel Clark, the lawyer. This is just to make sure everything gets handled efficiently. She slid one stack closer to me and placed a pen on top like it was already decided. All you need to do is sign where I marked. Something about that made me pause. I hadn't seen my mom's will yet. I haven't read anything, I said. Can I go through it first? She let out a small laugh. Not mean. Just dismissive. It's nothing complicated, Emily. Your mom didn't have a complex estate. This is just releasing authority so I can manage things for you. It'll save you a lot of stress. Releasing authority. The way she said it made it sound harmless. Temporary. Helpful. But the words stuck in my head. Why do you need authority? I asked. She sighed, like I was already making this harder than it needed to be. Because there's a process, she said. There are timelines, accounts, things that need to be consolidated. You don't want to deal with all of that right now. She leaned back slightly, watching me. Trust me. This is easier. Maybe it would have been easier. Maybe signing would have meant I didn't have to think about anything for a while. But something didn't sit right. I picked up the first page and started reading. The language was dense. Legal. Words like temporary authority, estate management, asset consolidation. At first, it didn't fully make sense. But the more I read, the more I started to understand the shape of it. This wasn't just helping. This was control. If I signed, she would be able to make decisions about everything. Accounts, property, sales, distribution. Without needing me. Why does this say you can make decisions without my approval? I asked, looking up. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes tightened. It's standard, she said again. It's just so things don't get delayed. I flipped to another page. My name was there, but not where I expected it. Not as the one in control, as the one stepping back. And that's when I saw it. An address. Not the house in Salem. Something else. I frowned and looked at it again. What is this property? I asked. There was a pause. Just a second. But it was enough. Her fingers tapped lightly against the table before she answered. It's nothing important, she said. Just an old property your mom had. It's already being handled. That didn't make sense. My mom never mentioned anything like that. Not once. I felt something shift in my chest. A small, quiet feeling. Not panic. Not anger. Just awareness. I don't remember her ever owning anything else, I said carefully. She didn't think it was worth talking about, Susan replied quickly. It's just an investment. Like I said, it's being taken care of. Her tone was smoother now. Faster. Like she wanted to move past it. Go ahead and sign, Emily, she added, sliding the papers closer again. We don't want to delay this. I looked down at the pen, then back at the pages, then at her. And for the first time since my mom died, something inside me pushed back. I'm not signing anything today, I said. The room went quiet. Not loud quiet. The kind that settles in and makes everything feel sharper. Her smile faded slightly. You're overthinking this, she said. Maybe, I replied. But I want to read everything first. Her jaw tightened just enough for me to notice. We're trying to help you, she said. We. That word again. And this time, it didn't feel supportive. It felt like pressure. I gathered the papers slowly, stacking them together. I'll take these home, I said. I'll look through them, and I'll get back to you. For a second, I thought she might argue. But she didn't. She just nodded once. Fine, she said. But don't take too long. There are timelines. Timelines. Everything with her was timelines. Deadlines. Movement. Control. I stood up, holding the papers against my chest. Thanks, I said quietly. She didn't respond. The drive back to Salem felt different. Heavier. Like something had shifted, and I couldn't unfeel it. I kept thinking about that address. That one line buried in pages of legal language. A property my mom never told me about. And the way my aunt paused before answering. Just a second. But enough. By the time I got home, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't just reading paperwork anymore. I was trying to figure out what my mom actually left behind. And why someone else seemed so determined to control it before I even understood it. And that feeling stayed with me as I sat down at the kitchen table, spread the papers out, and started reading again. This time, slower. I didn't start reading right away. I just sat there at the kitchen table, the papers spread out in front of me, staring at them like they might rearrange themselves into something simpler if I waited long enough. The house still felt wrong without her. Too quiet. Every little sound stood out. The hum of the fridge. The ticking clock. The way the floor creaked when I shifted in my chair. I picked up the first page again. Temporary authority. That phrase kept coming up. At first glance, it looked harmless. Just legal wording. But the more I slowed down and actually read line by line, the clearer it became. If I signed this, my Aunt Susan wouldn't just be helping. She would be in control. Full access to accounts. The ability to sell property. Move money. Make decisions about asset distribution without needing to consult me. There was even a section about expedited liquidation if deemed necessary. Liquidation. I stared at that word for a long time. It didn't sound like help. It sounded like closing things out fast. Maybe too fast. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my face with both hands. Part of me wanted to believe her. It would have been easier. Just sign, let her handle it, stop thinking. But then I thought about my mom. I've got everything handled. That's what she always said. She didn't trust people easily when it came to money or paperwork. She double-checked everything. She kept folders, labels, notes. There was no way she left things vague. No way she set it up so someone else could just step in and take over everything without me even seeing it first. I looked back down at the documents. That's when I went straight to the page with the property. The address was in Seattle, Washington. I read it again just to make sure I wasn't misreading it. Seattle. My mom barely liked driving outside Salem, and somehow she owned property in another state? That didn't fit. I grabbed my phone and typed the address into a search. It came up almost immediately. A duplex. 2 units. Modest. Nothing fancy, but clearly a rental property. There were even old listing photos still floating around online. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't nothing. This was income. Investment. Something my mom had managed quietly without ever mentioning it to me. Why wouldn't she tell me? Or had she planned to and just never got the chance? I flipped back to the documents. The property was listed under the estate, which meant it wasn't something my aunt added. It was real. But the way Susan brushed it off, that didn't match. I kept reading, and the more I read, the worse it felt. There were sections that didn't just give her authority temporarily. They gave her flexibility. Power to act in the best interest of the estate without needing direct approval. That phrase again. Best interest. According to who? I sat there for what felt like hours, going through the same pages over and over, like I might catch something I missed the first time. By the time it got dark outside, my eyes hurt and my head felt heavy. But one thing was clear. If I signed those papers, I wouldn't just be getting help. I'd be stepping out of my own mother's estate and letting someone else decide what happened to everything she left behind. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that line again. Authority granted. I kept thinking about my aunt's face when I asked about the property. That tiny pause. It replayed over and over. It wasn't nothing. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual. I didn't even make coffee. I went straight to the papers, grabbed the page with the lawyer's information, and dialed the number. My hand felt colder than it should have. It rang twice before someone picked up. Law office of Daniel Clark, a woman answered. Hi, I said, my voice a little tighter than I expected. I'm calling about an estate. Linda Thompson. There was a pause, then typing. Yes, I see the file, she said. How can we help you? I hesitated for a second. I didn't want to sound like I didn't know what I was talking about. I was given some documents to sign, I said carefully. I just wanted to understand what they actually mean. Of course, she said. Have you reviewed the will yet? That question hit harder than it should have. No, I said. I haven't been shown it. Silence. Not long, but long enough. I would strongly recommend reviewing the will before signing any additional documents, she said, her tone shifting slightly. More careful. More deliberate. That was it. She didn't say anything dramatic. She didn't accuse anyone. But she didn't need to. Something in the way she said it made everything click. I wasn't supposed to sign first. I was supposed to understand first. I'd like to see it, I said. Of course, she replied. You can come into the office today if you'd like. I will, I said, already reaching for my keys. The drive into downtown Salem felt sharper than usual. Like everything was more real. More defined. I parked, walked into the building, and followed the signs up to the office. The waiting area was quiet. Neutral. Beige walls, soft lighting, the kind of place designed not to make you feel anything. A man stepped out after a few minutes. Emily, he asked. I nodded. I'm Daniel Clark, he said, extending his hand. Come on back. His office was simple. Organized. Not intimidating, just steady. He sat down across from me and pulled a folder from his desk. I understand you haven't had a chance to review your mother's will yet, he said. No, I replied. I was just given paperwork to sign. He gave a small nod. Before we discuss anything else, he said, sliding the document toward me, you should read this. My hands felt heavier than they should have as I opened the folder. This was it. Whatever my mom had planned. Whatever she had handled. I started reading. And within the first few minutes, something shifted again. Not confusion this time. Clarity. Because this wasn't simple at all. I didn't rush through it. I read every line slowly, like if I moved too fast I might miss something that mattered. My mom's voice was almost in my head while I was reading it. Not literally. Just the way she used to explain things. Calm. Direct. No wasted words. That's how the will felt. Clear. Intentional. Nothing vague about it. The house in Salem, our house, was left to me. Not shared. Not conditional. Mine. Her savings were split exactly how she wanted. A portion set aside for a small local charity she had quietly supported for years, something I only found out about right there in that office. The rest was mine. And then, the property in Seattle. I paused when I got to that section. It was written just as clearly as everything else. Ownership transferred fully to me. No mention of my aunt. No shared authority. No management clause. Nothing. Just mine. I looked up at Daniel. This is everything? I asked. Yes, he said. That's the full will. There's nothing about someone else managing it? I asked carefully. He shook his head. No. Your mother designated you as the sole beneficiary and decision maker. I felt something drop in my chest. Not panic. Not relief either. Just a kind of heavy understanding. So why would I be asked to sign something giving someone else authority? I asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. He leaned back slightly, choosing his words. Sometimes, he said, family members step in to help manage estates, especially when things feel overwhelming. It's not uncommon for someone to request temporary authority. Even if it's not in the will? I asked. Yes, he said. But it should always be your choice. And it should always be fully explained. Fully explained. That hadn't happened. I looked back down at the will. Everything my mom had, everything she planned, it was all here. Organized. Thought through. Exactly like she always said. I've got everything handled. She meant it. And for a second, I felt this sharp mix of pride and guilt. Pride because she trusted me enough to leave everything to me. Guilt because I almost signed that away without even reading this. I closed the folder slowly. I'm not signing those papers, I said. Daniel nodded once. That's your decision to make, he said. If you'd like, we can handle the estate directly from here. I would, I said, my voice steadier now. There was no hesitation anymore. Just a quiet certainty. We spent the next hour going through everything. Accounts. Timelines. What needed to be done and what didn't need to be rushed. Nothing about it required me to give up control. Nothing about it required someone else to step in and take over. When I left the office, the air outside felt different. Not lighter. Just clearer. Like I could finally see what I was dealing with. The drive back home gave me too much time to think. About my aunt. About the way she had set everything up before I even saw the will. About how easily I could have signed. I kept going back to that moment at her table. The pen. The way she said, just trust me. And I almost did. When I got home, I didn't sit down right away. I walked through the house instead. Room by room. The living room where my mom used to sit in the evenings. The hallway where she'd call my name if I stayed up too late. The kitchen where everything still felt paused in time. She didn't leave things messy. She didn't leave me unprepared. Someone else just tried to step into that space. And that thought settled into something sharper. Not anger. Not yet. Just clarity. I pulled my phone out and stared at my aunt's number for a long moment. Then I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Emily, she said, like she was expecting me. I went to see the lawyer, I said. Silence. Not complete. I could hear something faint in the background. But she didn't respond right away. I read the will, I added. Another pause. Then, okay, she said. Just that. Okay. I'm not signing anything, I said. This time, the silence was heavier. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be, she said finally. No, I replied. I'm making sure I understand what I'm doing. Her tone shifted slightly. You don't understand how these things work, she said. There are processes. Delays. You could lose value if you don't move quickly. Lose value. That phrase stood out. Lose value of what? I asked. The estate, she said quickly. Assets can depreciate. Markets change. That didn't match what Daniel had said. Nothing needed to be rushed. Nothing was at risk like that. You told me the Seattle property was nothing, I said. There it was. A beat. Then, it's not significant, she replied. That's not what it looks like, I said. Her voice cooled. I'm trying to help you, Emily. I didn't ask you to take control, I said. Another pause. Then she said something that stuck with me. You would have been overwhelmed, she said. I was preventing that. Not helping. Preventing. Like I was something that needed to be managed. I'll handle it, I said. There was a shift on the line. Subtle. But final. Fine, she said. If that's what you want. It didn't sound like agreement. It sounded like distance. The call ended shortly after that. No argument. No yelling. Just a line drawn. I stood there in the kitchen for a while after the call ended, holding my phone, listening to the silence again. But it didn't feel the same as before. Before, it felt empty. Now, it felt intentional. Like something had been pushed back into place. Still fragile. Still unresolved. But mine. And that's when it really hit me. If I hadn't slowed down. If I had signed without reading. I wouldn't even know what I lost. And that thought stayed with me longer than anything else. Because it wasn't just about the property. Or the money. It was about how close I came to handing over everything my mom trusted me with, without even realizing it. And I still didn't know why my aunt thought she could. The next few days didn't explode the way I expected. No angry calls. No dramatic confrontations. No one showing up at my door demanding explanations. Instead, everything went quiet. Too quiet. At first, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe my aunt had just backed off, accepted it, moved on. But then small things started happening. Subtle. Easy to ignore if I wanted to. Ashley texted me. I heard you're not signing the paperwork. That was it. No greeting. No context. I stared at the message for a while before replying. I'm handling things through the lawyer. There was a long pause before she responded. Mom was just trying to help. I could almost hear her voice in my head. Careful. Neutral. Not picking a side. I know, I typed back. But even as I sent it, I wasn't sure if I believed it anymore. That same afternoon, I got another message. This time from Mark Martin. Hey, just wanted to check in. You okay? Mark wasn't blood family. He'd been around for years, though. Fixed things around the house, helped my mom with small repairs, stayed for coffee sometimes. The kind of person who didn't say much, but showed up when it mattered. I'm okay, I replied. A minute later, he called. I answered. You sure? He asked. Yeah, I said. Just dealing with stuff. There was a pause. Your aunt's been talking, he said. Of course she had. What's she saying? I asked. That you're overwhelmed. That you're pushing away help, he said. That things might get messy if you don't let someone experienced handle it. Messy. That word again. Like my life was something that needed to be managed by someone else. I'm not overwhelmed, I said. I didn't think you were, he replied. That simple answer grounded me more than anything else that day. Just be careful, he added. Paperwork like that matters. I know, I said quietly. After the call ended, I sat there for a while, letting it sink in. This wasn't just between me and my aunt anymore. It was spreading. Not aggressively. Not loudly. But enough. Enough to shape how people saw me. Like I was the one making things harder. Like I was the problem. That night, I pulled the documents out again. Not the ones my aunt gave me. The will. I read it again, slower this time. Not just the assets. Not just the legal language. The intent. Everything my mom wrote felt deliberate. She didn't leave gaps. She didn't leave room for confusion. She trusted me to handle it. Not someone else. Me. And the more I thought about that, the more something inside me settled. Because this wasn't about proving my aunt wrong. It was about not ignoring what my mom had already decided. The next morning, I went back to Daniel's office. We sat down and went through everything again, but this time it felt different. Less like I was trying to understand something. More like I was confirming it. We can begin transferring everything into your name, he said. The house, the accounts, and the Seattle property. Hearing it said out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Do I need to worry about anyone contesting it? I asked. He shook his head. From what I've seen, your mother's will is very clear, he said. There's no ambiguity. No competing claims. No competing claims. Except someone had still tried to step in. Is it common for someone to ask for authority like that? I asked. It happens, he said. Usually when someone believes they're helping. Sometimes, it's about control. He didn't say it directly. But he didn't need to. I nodded. I want to move forward, I said. Of course, he replied. We started the process that day. Paperwork, signatures, timelines. This time, everything was explained. Every document. Every step. Nothing hidden behind vague language or rushed explanations. When I left his office, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my mom got sick. Not relief. Not exactly. More like stability. Like the ground under me wasn't shifting anymore. But that didn't mean everything was settled. Because later that evening, my phone rang. Susan. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. Hello. I heard you went back to the lawyer, she said. No greeting. No softness. Straight to it. Yes, I said. There was a pause. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be, she said again. I don't think I am, I replied. You don't understand how these things work, she said. There are financial implications. Timing matters. I've talked to Daniel, I said. Nothing needs to be rushed. Silence. Then her voice changed. Less controlled. You're letting someone else influence you, she said. That caught me off guard. No, I said. I'm making my own decisions. Another pause. Then she said it. I was trying to protect you. Protect. Not help. Not support. Protect. From what? I asked. From making mistakes, she said. From being taken advantage of. The irony of that sat heavy in my chest. I'm not the one being taken advantage of, I said quietly. There was a long silence on the other end. Longer than before. When she spoke again, her voice was colder. Do what you want, Emily, she said. But don't expect me to fix it later. Fix it. Like everything I was doing was something that would eventually fall apart. I'm not asking you to, I said. And that was it. The call ended there. No yelling. No resolution. Just distance. I stood in the kitchen again after that, the same place I had stood so many times over the past week. But this time I didn't feel uncertain. I didn't feel like I was reacting. I felt like I was choosing. And that choice didn't feel loud or dramatic. It felt quiet. Solid. Final. Whatever this was between me and my aunt. It wasn't going to go back to how it was before. And for the first time, I stopped wondering if that was something I needed to fix. Because maybe it wasn't broken. Maybe it was just revealed. The confrontation didn't happen the way I imagined it would. No shouting. No dramatic moment where everything came spilling out at once. It happened quietly. Almost like everything else. Susan asked me to come by her house again. Same place. Same dining table. I almost said no. But something in me wanted to see her face when there was nothing left to hide behind. So I drove to Portland again. The weather was gray, the kind that makes everything feel flatter than it is. Her house looked exactly the same as before. Clean. Still. Controlled. When I walked in, she was already at the table. No papers this time. Just her. Sit, she said. I did. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I think we should clear this up." Her tone was calm, but it didn't feel open. It felt managed. "I already have," I said. "I don't think you have," she replied. There it was again. That quiet certainty that made it sound like my perspective didn't count. "I read the will," I said. "Everything is clear." She nodded slowly, like she expected that. "And you think that means you understand everything involved?" she asked. "I understand enough to know I don't need to sign anything giving you control," I said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Control," she repeated. "Yes," I said. "That's what it was." She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "I was trying to manage the process," she said. "There's a difference." "Not from what I read," I replied. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then she let out a quiet breath, like she was deciding how much to say. "You have no idea how complicated estates can become," she said. "Properties in different states. Accounts that need to be aligned. Timing issues that can cost you money if you don't act correctly. I've already gone over all of that with Daniel," I said. "Nothing is at risk." Her expression shifted. "Not dramatically. Just enough." "You're trusting a lawyer you just met over family," she said. That hit harder than I expected. Because part of me still wanted this to be a misunderstanding. "I'm trusting what's written," I said. "And what my mom decided." That was the first time her composure cracked. Not loudly, but enough to see it. "You think she told you everything?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Because that question. That one actually landed. There were things I didn't know. The Seattle property proved that. But that didn't mean she left things open for someone else to take over. "I think she trusted me," I said finally. Susan looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something that stayed with me. "She trusted you to not be alone in this," she said. It sounded reasonable. Almost convincing. But something about it didn't sit right. "She didn't put that in writing," I said. Another pause. Then she leaned forward slightly. "You were overwhelmed," she said. "You still are." I stepped in because someone needed to. Stepped in. Not asked. Not offered. Just stepped in. "I didn't ask you to," I said. "You didn't have to," she replied. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because of what she said. Because of how easily she said it. Like my voice in any of this had never really mattered. "I would have handled it," I said. "When?" she asked. "After mistakes were made? After things were lost?" "Nothing was going to be lost," I said. "You don't know that," she snapped. There it was. The edge. The frustration that had been sitting underneath everything finally breaking through. "I know enough to read what I'm signing," I said. Silence. Heavy this time. Then she shook her head slightly. "You're being stubborn," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm being careful." Her eyes held mine for a long second. Then she said, quieter, "I was trying to protect what your mother built." And, for a split second, I almost believed her again. Because that sounded like her. Like the version of her who showed up when my mom got sick. Who brought food. Who handled calls. Who made things easier when everything felt too heavy. But then I remembered the papers. The clauses. The way my name wasn't where it should have been. "You weren't protecting it," I said. "You were taking control of it." Her expression hardened. "That's your interpretation," she said. "It's what the documents say," I replied. Another long silence. Then she leaned back again, like she was done trying. "Fine," she said. "If you want to handle everything yourself, go ahead." Her tone wasn't supportive. It wasn't angry either. It was something else. Distance. Final. "I will," I said. She nodded once. And, just like that, the conversation ended. No apology. No resolution. Just a line drawn that neither of us was going to cross again. I stood up slowly. For a second, I thought about saying something else. Something softer. Something that might leave the door open. But I didn't. Because I realized something in that moment. This wasn't just about misunderstanding. It wasn't just about her trying to help the wrong way. She made a decision. To step in. To take over. Without asking. And if I hadn't stopped it, she would have followed through. I walked out of her house without looking back. The air outside felt colder than it should have. Or maybe I just felt it more. The drive back to Salem was quiet. No music. No distractions. Just the sound of the road and my own thoughts. And somewhere along that drive, something settled. Not anger. Not even relief. Just acceptance. Whatever relationship we had before, it wasn't the same anymore. And it probably never would be. The paperwork finished quietly. No big moment. No final meeting where everything was handed to me at once. Just signatures. Emails. A few visits to Daniel's office. One document after another, each one explained clearly this time. Nothing rushed. Nothing hidden behind vague words. The house transferred into my name first. That felt strange. Not exciting. Not even emotional the way I expected. Just official. Like something that had always been mine finally had it written down somewhere. The accounts followed after that. Smaller things. Details my mom had already organized so well it almost felt like I was just stepping into something she had already set up for me. And then there was the property in Seattle. That one took longer. Different state. Different process. More paperwork. But nothing complicated in the way Susan had made it sound. Just steps. Clear, manageable steps. When it was finally done, I remember sitting in Daniel's office while he closed the file. That's everything, he said. You're fully in control of the estate now. Fully in control. That phrase felt different from the way it had been used before. This time, it didn't feel like something being taken. It felt like something being returned. I nodded. Thank you, I said. You handled it well, he replied. I didn't know if that was true. I just knew I didn't ignore the feeling that something was off. And that had been enough. Life didn't suddenly become easier after that. There wasn't some moment where everything clicked back into place and I felt okay again. Grief doesn't work like that. Some days were still heavy. Some mornings I still woke up and expected to hear my mom moving around in the kitchen. But there was a difference. The house didn't feel uncertain anymore. It felt settled. Like it belonged to me in a way that wasn't just physical. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way she labeled everything in the drawers. The notes she left tucked into folders. The small, quiet systems she built that made everything easier without drawing attention to it. She really had handled everything. Exactly like she said. I visited the Seattle property a few weeks later. I don't even know why. Maybe I needed to see it for myself. It was a small duplex in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing flashy. Just practical. Steady. Like her. Standing there, I realized something that hit me harder than I expected. She had built something I didn't even know existed. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she was preparing for me. And that made everything else feel smaller. The conflict. The tension. Even Susan. Speaking of her. We didn't talk again. Not after that day. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I heard things though. Through Ashley. Through Mark. Through the quiet way information moves when people don't say things directly. Some said I overreacted. That Susan was just trying to help. That I pushed her away when she stepped up. Others said I did the right thing. That I protected what was mine. That I didn't let myself get pushed into something I didn't understand. I never responded to any of it. Because the truth is, I still don't fully know which one is right. That's the part that stays with me. Susan wasn't a stranger. She was there when my mom got sick. She showed up when things were hard. She helped in ways that mattered. And I can't ignore that. But I also can't ignore the papers. The way they were set up. The way my name was placed. The way she asked me to sign before I even saw the will. Those things don't feel like help. They feel like something else. Something quieter. Something that only works if you don't stop and look too closely. I think about that a lot. About how close I came to signing. How easy it would have been. Just a pen. Just a moment. And everything would have shifted without me even realizing it. That's the part that makes me feel sick. Not what she did. What I almost let happen. Now, the house is mine. The accounts are mine. The Seattle property is mine. Everything my mom left behind stayed where she intended it to go. And I handled it. Even if it didn't feel like it at the time. But there's still that quiet question sitting underneath all of it. The one I don't have a clean answer for. Was she really trying to take control of everything? Or was she trying to help in the only way she knew how, and I just saw it at the worst possible moment? I don't know. And I'm not sure I ever will. And I still don't know if I protected what my mom left me. Or if I destroyed the last relationship I had left trying to keep it. Was I being careful? Or did I just not trust the only person who showed up when things got hard?